All right, everybody. Hello again. My name is Gabriel Rucker, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of Founding Titans. And welcome to another episode of Tales of the Pantheon. Today, we are talking about community at scale. And so before we get into everything, as always, I want to make sure that I bring on my co-founder, Brandy. And so I'm going to bring her on really quick here so she can give a little bit of an introduction for herself.
Hey, y'all. I just want to say, I got you. I just want to say thank y'all for being here. Definitely drop your questions in the chat and we'll be monitoring that and answering those along the way. I'm super excited for y'all to listen in on all of the wisdom from both Kurt and Joey. And so it's going to be a great conversation. And looking forward to engaging.
Yeah, and some quick information for us. So, Founding Titans is a community focused relationship optimization platform. It's built to be able to help entrepreneurs and communities to be able to 10x their network sizes and engagement. We're working on a custom recommendation algorithm that's basically powered by machine learning to be able to help entrepreneurs and basically just our users in general with finding the right people, businesses, communities, events, deals, and resources, as well as being able to manage communities, find the right sponsors and sponsorship management and event management on top of that as well, really just in the sake of collaboration and engagement. So I am going to have Brandy go off screen here, but she will be in the background and we'll bring her back towards the end. But the first person that I want to bring up is none other than one of the amazing community builders out of Atlanta, Joey Womack. So, all right, got you on here, Joey. If you're able to just introduce yourself really quick, talk about yourself, your organization, your story, whatever you got.
Sure. Thanks for having me on, man. So Joey Womack, founder, CEO of Goodie Nation. We are focused on closing what we call the relationship gap in the innovation economy. It's a little bit about myself, right? So I'm a natural convener of people. I kind of naturally take those relationships and turn them into communities. I take those communities and turn them into ecosystems. From Mobile, Alabama, where I get those skills from my parents. My mother's like a human LinkedIn. My father's a community activist back home. A number of years ago, way too many at this point, I went over to Florida A&M in Tallahassee for college. Going to my last year, I started a tech company. I graduated. I kept on doing it full time. And for the past, and I grew up kind of like top 5 in that particular space. And for the past 16, 17 years, I've been focused on supporting those in the innovation economy. We'll go into, philosophies and methodologies a little bit later on. But just know that in addition to Goodie Nation, where we service thousands of people in the innovation economy, from founders to leaders of organizations and those that support them, I also sit in a few boards, not only in Atlanta, but across the country as well.
Perfect, man. And no, it's crazy how many parallels your story has to mine, especially with your parents and how they're like active they were. Let me go ahead and introduce our next panelist, though. So I'm going to put you off right here. And then I'm going to bring up somebody that is an amazing community builder, investor, entrepreneur, all of those amazing things. He's also based out of my hometown, my city, Las Vegas. So let's go ahead and bring on Kurt Walker.
What's up, everybody? So I have a North Star, and this North Star is shared by Fusion 42 that's based in Vegas and Dubai, and that is that we help founders become funders. Founder Funders is our North Star. So everything we do is related to that. I've got a 20-year experience of being a funder. I built brand new financial products. I've been a VC, venture debt, angel, and also private equity deal maker. Still do those things to this day. We've got a super accelerator on the Fusion side and also have a venture studio. When it comes to Fusion 42, we have a very simple goal of helping founders to become market ready. This is the biggest thing that's keeping founders from being successful and even able to raise. We teach founders how to be fundraising fluent and AI accelerated. We do that through community sessions and events and content. We do over 100 events a year in Vegas and Dubai in person, and online we do over 200 sessions a year weekly. We have pitch kung fu sessions every single week. We have a super accelerator program that's launching on September 25th. We'll have 250 founders in that cohort. And then we also have the Dubai Tech Experience. We are taking 50 founders with Ghani Consulting out to the Dubai Tech Experience. We're running the US Pavilion, the family office event, and all the pitch events during GITEX. in October. And then twice a year, we run the Raise Fundraising Summit, where we bring in the best fundraisers from all over the world. That's going to be in mid-November. And then we do F1 events for family offices with Mainsail. So long story short, we've got some amazing things happening over at Fusion 42. We're super excited to work with you guys. We also track all the funds. So over the last year, we've tracked 800 new funds with fresh capital ready to deploy. In the last week, 7.9 billion across 35 new funds. You guys can get access to that in our Telegram community, where we have a bunch of experts answering questions on different topics. And every week we pipe in all those new funds with fresh capital. So come and hang out with us. And I'm very excited to be here today. We've done a lot of work with Gabriel, and we're very excited about what Brandy and Gabriel are building here at Founding Titans.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kurt. And so we're going to bring you guys back in here. Perfect. And so, yeah, let's kick off this amazing panel, guys. So today, like I said before, we're talking about community at scale. So I want to bring this question over to our panelists, and feel free for either of you guys to chime in. But I think I'm going to pass this off to Joey first, and then we'll go to Kurt, and then we'll just go back and forth for the rest of these. But what is it called? I want to make sure that we talk about the actual topic at hand, which is community at scale, and what that really means to you, and how community at scale really differs from, some of the grassroots or smaller communities that are out there.
Yeah. Interesting, topic in question, right? Interesting topic in question. So a little bit of background on myself. So my original startup was in the event space. Right. And so think like Eventbrite with analytics, like that feature on analytics. So I started that in college, right? And so what happened after I graduated, because many of our users were still college students, I began to basically, like, the same time people were coming up with this whole concept of viral coefficients, I was kind of figuring that on myself. And so one of the original features that we had, now I'm about to date myself, for those that remember MySpace. If you were on MySpace back in the day, you had your top friends list, right? And so because I'm also an analytical, where I love numbers. I'm not gonna say I'm analytical. I just love numbers. And so still college student, I'm still living in a college town. So I got free time, right? Theoretically, I'm not in class. So so while building the startup, I had a ton of time to think about why people go to events and how people find out events, how they found out about events, right? And ultimately what converts them to actually attend. And so what I began to figure out was that people went to events in groups, or what I call cliques, right? The younger that you are, like, your clique would be bigger. It will sometimes be 5 or 6 people. And I noticed, based on our user behavior, the older somebody got by 1 year, the number of people in their clique would decrease. And it kind of makes sense, right? You're younger, you go to a big group. By the time you're 30, you and your friend. The reason I bring that up is because I was able to track like 1,500 people in how, like what cliques they were in and what events they went to, strictly in my head. Now, I think some people will say that usually, or what I've read is that usually, like, once you get to like 150 people, like most groups start to break down. You start to kind of lose track of how the relationships are formed and the strength of relationships. But I got up to 1,500 people in my head, right? And so using that philosophy, I was like, maybe I'm a little bit different than the average person. And so when it came time to build the community for what ultimately turned into Goodie Nation, this is not my first one, right? This is not my first one. I began to think about, okay, if I need 10,000 people, what can I do, right? What do I need and stuff like that? And so I began to use tools like Airtable. I began to kind of put some more formality around how I think and what I think and stuff like that. And so we've developed a formula for social capital. So Kurt talked about like his North Star at Goodie Nation. Our North Star measure is going to be the total number of social capital we have in our community. And right now it sits at $390 million. By the way, our goal by the year 2030 is to hit $10 billion worth of social capital in the community. We can debate all day long around, like, like what the equation is and how we assign dollar value to it. I'm up for it even in this conversation, but just know that like that's our North Star, right? And so I build toward that so that the assumption is if we have all this social capital in the community that's available for people, they can draw upon like a VC fund for whatever they need, right? Whether if you're an entrepreneur, I'll wrap up here. If you're an entrepreneur, if you need it for advice, if you need that social capital for customers, if you need that social capital for someone to hire, right? If you need that social capital for investment, right? If you're an employee in an innovation economy, you need that social capital for job referrals, right? Or for advice on how to climb the corporate quote unquote ladder. And so when I think about like formulating communities at scale, I think about our North Star metric and then getting more social capital into the community and then figuring out very distinct ways for people to draw upon that social capital for whatever they need it for.
That's a great explanation there, and it's crazy how like my first company was an events company as well. A lot of those same parallels. I mean, actually, that number 10,000 is also just it's a major number that I think a lot of communities look at for at least that first major goal or metric to actually having a larger organization or community at scale. But Kurt, I know that a lot of the things that Joey discussed are a lot of the things that you kind of agree on or have a lot of parallels with as well, especially when talking about social capital. So you have any additional insights or information on that specific question with like grassroots communities versus community at scale and what that really means to you?
Yeah, I mean, most of the community building I've done started organically. I think I approach it in a way where I look for the leadership that come with the right energy and the right intention. So for me, really, I've been doing community for a long time in the music side of things, with music festivals and concerts, but I didn't think of it as community building at the time. We were doing music festivals across the country. So one month I would, be in every year in November, I would be in, let's say, Raleigh, North Carolina, and then I would be in DC in October or whatever. But I went through transformational training, which is a very specific type of like Navy SEAL boot camp for the heart, mind, and soul in 2017. And I had some experiences that were very intentional, meaning everything in the experience of the live event while you're sitting in the training room is intentional. Every little element. How were the chairs spaced? How many chairs were in there? Where were the doors? What was the flow of the calendar? How were the presentations done? Everything was just planned down to the little, and I'm not a really detail-oriented person, so I don't have Joey's talents, but I remember thinking from that moment, not only did I feel like a higher power, I believe in God, was telling me that I needed to go build community so that I could continue this experience out into the real world of being around game changers and moonshot takers. I stole from transformational training the level of intentionality, and I went and built a community that has served me greatly as we build out these fusion hubs in Egypt and Central America and all over the world. And we called it SPICE, and it was supporting prosperity, impact, contribution, and entrepreneurship. And what SPICE did really well is we found city captains. There was always 3, and ideally one of them was at least one of them was female. And I would choose just community builders at heart that understood not just ROI, but ROR, return on relationship. And we did some pretty serious scale. We were in 8 cities. I launched in 5 overnight, and we did 2 events, a small mastermind dinner, and then a larger social every month. We did 400 events. We started a couple of years before COVID and then led into COVID. So I was able to take that as I was building the fundraising platform that Fusion 42 is and adapt that to the events we do today. So SPICE will come back at some point. I had to kind of put it on ice because I needed to be 1000% focused on building the whole network effect situation that we have that we're building at Fusion. But we've done 500 founder funder events in the last 5 years at Fusion, which is serious scale. That's 10 events, a month on average, right? In Vegas, and trying to compete with everything else that's going on. And our events are always full. And so we get really creative, and we can talk about all the different things we've done. But when we talk about at scale, I think really when somebody says, hey, Kurt, we want a venture house property in Atlanta or in Dallas or in Austin, I say, show me the leadership first. To me, it always comes down to having really enrolling, very dynamic, well-spoken city captains that will get the job done, and know that if we set the room with the right intention and then fill it with the right people, we step back and we see synchronicity and serendipity happen. And I know Joey does the same thing. There's an energy that's infused when we get the right leaders with the right message in the right room, around the right mission. And so for me, that's what's created the scale. Yes, we added systems. Yes, I've screwed around with Eventbrite. I've used every freaking platform on planet Earth. We've used all sorts of outreach tools. We've even gotten nerdy enough to understand if the link you send in the text doesn't pop up a favicon so that somebody knows what they're looking at without clicking on it, that little tiny thing could be the difference between an extra 100 people showing up at an event.
Yeah, no, I mean, 100%. I mean, just those little tiny tweaks here and there, can be kind of the difference between life and death. I mean, even as we were chatting, I made sure that I sent out another blast to everybody that pre-registered for the event itself, just because we have the Luma links for everything. We have things on YouTube and all these other different, avenues for people to be able to get access. But also, I mean, people are extremely busy, right? How do you get them active? How do you keep them captivated? And I think that goes back into this next question that I really want to ask you guys, which is, how you really balance, familiarity and those personal connections while you're building, community, especially ones that, span, cities or even, span the globe. Because I know you guys aren't just active within your local systems. You're also active, globally and, are really taking over a lot of these virtual platforms. So I think I'll pass it over to you first for this one, Kurt. So, how do you really build that connection with your audience?
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to hearing Joey's take on this. So, guys, every time you go to build a community, be intentional about it. There's design decisions that you can make. Let me give you an example. Are we looking to create something super intimate, or are we looking to create something super casual? Now, you can have both, but typically they don't go together. Are you looking to create something very open, or are you looking to create something very closed? I'll give you an example. Spice was not open. If you were not purpose and contribution driven, you were not allowed to come. It was invite only, and we had no problem with that because we wanted the energy to be with founders that really were about purpose and contribution and not about how much money they made. Now, with Fusion, we can't really stand on that. We can't really have it be closed. We have to have it be very open. So we kind of refrain from religion. We refrain from politics because we have such a global audience that has very, very different religious backgrounds that we want to keep it in a way where it's very open, right? So it's more inclusive. So when you hear the term closed from a design perspective, you may think that that's not good. I strongly disagree. The more closed your community is, where it feels like it's for you, and in a little way, it's kind of like us against the world, it creates an energy that's very different. So whenever possible, I like to get as closer to the closed end of the design spectrum as humanly possible. So when we're talking about those kinds of things, these are situations that I think founders or community builders don't really think about. There's always these continuums, right? And then there's design decisions you can make in the experience. So when somebody used to show up at a Spice event, especially a dinner, a mastermind dinner, they were welcomed at the door. They were reminded that they should not talk about work or what they do. And then they were handed a beverage or a glass of wine, and they would come in. And they're not used to that, especially when they were around a bunch of game changers and moonshot tickers. But that was a design decision. Another design decision is if you were late, you were not welcome to come at the mastermind dinners. The dinner started at 6:50 p.m. You ever been to an event that starts at 6:50 p.m.? That sub communicates, be on effing time, people, right? Now, I'm not saying every event the Spice did or everything that we do at Fusion is like that. Fusion does a lot of poolside pitches. We've got these venture house properties with beautiful backyards and big pools, and we do things very differently. You came to the Sexy Santa Swim that we did, that charity event for Christmas at Venture House 2, which is a 20-bedroom house. And we had 350 guests. I'm most proud. I think we did 500 gifts for children. So I think that was pretty badass. But that was an event that was designed to be far more inclusive of people that were not founders, venture, angel people. We had doctors, we had lawyers, we had a lot of people from the community come to that. So you can kind of flex up and down. Another thing I'll just mention, if you're building a venture community, is sometimes you're going to be doing investor events where you need to be really mindful about who you're inviting in. It's not to say that founders are bad at investor events, but people tend to operate differently depending on the closeness of shared vertical or experience the people that particular event has been designed for is welcoming.
No, 100%. And also I want to say, one of the best parties I've been to for the event that you threw last December. Yep, actually amazing. We actually got an interim CTO out of that and an advisor just from that event alone. So amazing thing. Also, personal hype person for anything Vegas, and making sure that we throw love to all of the events that come out of there.
We don't screw around here.
Yeah, no, the best event I've been to for entrepreneurs in Vegas. I can say that.
Wow, that's great. You didn't come to the pitch event we did at CES, right? This
year,
we had 1,000 founders.
I'm still upset that I didn't go, but next year, this next upcoming CES, I'm gonna be there for sure.
And I can't wait to work with Joey. Joey's doing such good work down in Atlanta, and I cannot wait to see how he throws down. So, Joey, what's your response on this? Because you've got a lot of goals too.
Yeah, love it. And I do have a question I want to throw back to both of you all as well. So a number of different things, right? So generally speaking around, definitely agree, right? On the concept of, some people may call it gatekeeping, is open to close or whatever. Like, I'm totally cool with gatekeeping, quote unquote, even though it may have a different kind of connotation. To me, it's like, what is the bar, right? And so for me, there's a few things. One, we want people in our community that share the same values, right? Like our purpose. And our purpose is around, we can talk about closing the relationship gap, but it's about creating a better and more sustainable future for us all. So you go back to that Simon Sinek book, right? Or his TED Talk. We talk like, what do you believe in, right? We're not talking about some other types of beliefs. Like we believe that we can create a better and more sustainable future for us all by paying it forward. If you believe in that, then you are for us at Goodie Nation, right? And so it attracts, to Kurt's point, it attracts the type of people that believe in it. They may have a bunch of other different and competing beliefs, and that's totally okay. But if you believe that you have what it takes to make the world better, you're for us, right? So that's a way we kind of filter folks in. Now, to the point around, I'll say this. My philosophy on building community is that relationships are based on trust. And that trust can express itself in a number of different ways. Generally speaking, I believe in putting, for many experiences, though not all, putting people around the same level together, because building off of what Kurt said earlier, again, I'm a party guy going back to college. I think about some of the best best parties I've ever been to have been house parties. Now, house parties, depending on what kind of house you've been to or you live in or something like that, they're typically not a lot of people, right? 20, 30, something odd people. But because the space is literally small, it forces the energy to bounce off each other. And so those are the type of experience I look to create, right? And so you need a lot of trust when you're at a house party with the people in attendance. And so how we think about making sure that folks are kind of at the same level, we think about in terms of pillars. So for example, at Goodie Nation, we have this, or think about it like in terms of like levels that you might see on sponsorship, like medal levels, right? So our, let's say, bronze level membership, quote unquote, is open to all people. And so we design experiences where you don't need as much trust to be around, especially like if it's virtual, something like that. It could be a webinar on how to use AI tools, right? You don't need a lot of trust because there's not a lot of interaction per se. But as you start to kind of go up to like, quote unquote, silver level membership, the more intimate experiences, our informal group therapy session for founders that are virtual, our in-person dinners or in-person experiences, you need more trust. And so therefore it becomes, quote unquote, harder to kind of get to that. So we've also had to figure out ways for people to establish trust. So for example, for our founder program, if you'd like to get an introduction to an investor, or you like to go to a dinner with an investor and something like that, you actually have to go through a pitch with an investor on our team. And then that person will rate you according to one of our rubrics. If you pass that evaluation, you get to go. If you don't pass the evaluation, there's some coaching we can give you until you pass that evaluation. And that unlocks, the concept is unlocking some different level of access for you, right? So you got to earn it, right? You got to earn it. Also, to get to that quote unquote silver level, even a gold level, you have to engage in a certain number of experiences and program components, right? So the stuff at the silver, gold, and maybe platinum level, it's a privilege, it's not a right. And so we design components of our program in our community that ask people to earn it by engaging in things of that nature. Maybe they got to pay it forward, and there's a few other examples. But one of the things I want to get across before I throw a question back to you all is recently we started to build community around identities, right? So what I'm not talking about here is identity like race, ethnicity, gender, and stuff like that. This is around how you identify as a human outside of those things. And so it's based off the behavioral economic principle of identity priming. So if no one's ever familiar, if you're not familiar with that, it's a series, it's a way to engage your users and then walk them through a series of activities in order to get them to do something that you want them to do. And so what we've begun to do at Goodie Nation is build sub communities based on identities. If someone is like a connector, so a community builder, right? So if you identify as a connector of humans, we have a community for you. If you identify as a founder, we have a community for you. And that's one of the more, popular identity kind of focused communities across the country and the world. If you identify as a storyteller, there's a community for you, right? So people that automatically, as soon as they see the word, they're like, oh, that's me. That's me. Yeah. That's me. You know what I'm saying? Like they go and they apply. Then we start to do other things for them. We've also started to, and I'll wrap up here. We've also started to create merch. So we actually dropped merchandise yesterday with simply the identity across the front. So it's a sweatshirt. You can go to our website right now. If you're a connector, you can buy a Goodie Nation sweatshirt in partnership, in true kind of pay it forward or collaborative spirit. We've collaborated with founder Moda out of Birmingham for these crew neck sweatshirts that say connector, that say storyteller, that say amplifier if you're a marketing person and something like that. These are all identities. And we found a lot of success by putting identity folks together in dinners, in roundtable discussions that are virtual and things of that nature. So that's a little bit about that. But the question I have for you all is around authenticity, right? So super quick story. I was talking to one of the founders of our recently launched marketing agency accelerator. And she had found some success in building community for potential clients because she just wanted to help them out. It was not lead gen. She simply wanted to help them out. And then somebody pointed out to her that it was lead gen. And she had a pseudo aha moment because what led to her success was her authenticity. But once she realized it was generating leads, she started to lose that authenticity, which would then hurt the leads, if that makes sense. So I guess the question I have really for both of you all is, what are you all's thoughts on, authenticity as it relates to community building? And I guess the question is, if you start to realize that you're having success by being authentic, does it actually hurt you in the long run?
That's a really good question, man. Honestly, I mean, I don't know if Kurt wants to jump in. If not, I can jump in for this one. But
yeah, I don't know how to not be authentic. I think from my perspective, I'm not somebody that likes to deal with politics. I just like to be very straightforward, and especially in a founder environment, Fusion is doing everything we can to save founders time because they're racing the clock. Examples of this are, we're very clear on who we are from the website. You go to the website, this is the place for founders that want to get shiz done, we're a no BS, tough love organization. So while Fusion is open to everyone, there's no question that the filter that we have put forward is that we're here for those that want to get it done, and it's no BS, and it's for those that want to learn. So for example, founders that think that referrals to investors are the only thing they lack, which is almost never the case, they're not a good fit for us because they're not going to show up in the sessions and listen. They're not going to come with an open mind to pitch Kung Fu, which is another filter we have. You want to get connected to investors? Great. Did you upload into the danger room? Did you give feedback to the other founders? Are you willing to go through the gauntlet, at Pitch Kung Fu and get feedback multiple times? Those are things that help to separate, even if we are, a lot more open than say other environments that we have. I think also it comes from the leadership and the energy and the community culture that you choose to build, right? Yeah. Again, people want to be for everyone, but if you're for everyone, you stand for nothing. And so I think you have to make very intentional decisions about what you're for and who you're not for. Fusion is okay with saying that we're contrarian, that we don't believe in the power law, which is a fancy way of saying 98% of all startups are going to fail, and it has to be that way. We strongly disagree. We're also not anti-VC at all. I mean, I'm a VC, but we help founders to understand how to fundraising fish for themselves. So we're willing to say the unpopular thing, including telling the average founder your baby's pretty freaking ugly right now. Sorry. Good news is you want to do something about it, right? So that speaks to me, and it speaks, I think, pretty well to founders that largely have never been startup educated, no matter where they come from, whether they're from maybe an underserved community, maybe they're from an emerging market. We don't care. You're from an Ivy League school. It doesn't matter. You still need startup education. And most of what passes as gospel, like Shark Tank and all this other stuff, is just very wrong-headed. So we're willing to kind of say the unpopular thing. And I think candor goes a long way if it's conveyed with support and trust as the underbelly of all of that. And then, authenticity. I think, Spice was never about money. People would donate what they felt to come. Fusion is a commercial enterprise. I think on the side of giving too much and not asking for enough in return, we've gone too far that direction. We joke all the time with the founders that we don't charge enough. I mean, our main offer is $42 a month. Almost everything we do is free. And you're not going to see other accelerators doing what we're doing with no equity and charging so little. Now, here's the downside of that for you as a community builder. If you were in my position, here's the downside of that as a participant. Let's say you're Gabriel and you're coming to our sessions. And Gabriel's also, he's not only somebody that's on our stages, but he's constantly learning from the experience that he's having with us. We can't actually serve him at the level we could if we were thinking a little bit more about this does get to be an enterprise, not just something that people feel good about, right? The less money we charge for those that are receiving value, the slower we are in building, because that money goes directly back into what we're doing. So I think there's a fine line there. And I'll just share this last thing. When Spice went from 5 cities to 8 cities, we started getting to the point where it needed to become more planned out, more structured. And I definitely think that, I mean, this is just being vulnerable and building in public, right? I definitely feel that there were some that felt that we started moving slightly less organic. Well, of course, you want to have the same experience in New York City that you had in Vegas or Phoenix or San Diego or Salt Lake or Dallas. Yeah, there needs to be some structure there in order for the consistency, because that was one of the things we did really well, is that energy of contribution, impact, and a focus on all of us sharing and prosperity was always present in every single city. Now, that was largely an effect of choosing the right city captain leadership. And we offered them 3 things. One is we're going to teach you how to be a community builder. We called it CAP, Captains Advancing Prosperity. Second, we're going to teach you about lead generation and how to build a personal brand and position yourself. And third, we're going to teach you about transformational leadership. Sounds woo-woo, sounds like, what is that, Kurt? That's the number one thing that all the city captains reported was the best aspect of their entire experience. They ended up going through transformational training programs that weren't a part of Spice, that ended up transforming them as leaders. And then if I were to add an additional layer, again, now that I have all this capital infrastructure to babysit and support founders moving towards exits, moving towards getting capitalized, we can teach the average community builder to be an angel investor, to start building their own worth, understanding, not their own worth, their own net worth, and understanding AI and blockchain in a way that they never have ever before, because we're so heavy on that. We really teach that a lot. So I think it's a fine line. And I think that, like any company, a community's leadership is going to dictate the level of authenticity that's there. At the same time, guys, like, we don't need to act like we're running the Red Cross and that everything needs to be free. I do think 100% people value what they pay for. And Spice had a weird model where we didn't have a set amount that we charged for the dinners. And here's what I found. If the city captain did not explain and enroll the individual that was being invited properly, it was confusing and they wouldn't donate very much. But if they were properly enrolled, I say if, you would have people paying, and all that was expected was maybe $25, but people would donate $7,500, a couple hundred to even $500 per person to come have these experiences with 30 very highly intentional individuals that were all very successful, that were all impact driven. You see the difference, like in the pitch and in the way the offer was shared. And so we learned a lot of lessons about that. And by the way, that decision of not charging a set fee sent us down a rabbit hole of which of these platforms will even let us put a custom number in the box when they're getting their ticket. I don't like Eventbrite, but at the time they were the only ones that allowed that. Every other funnel, every other platform was like, you needed to put a set number into the ticketing thing. So these sound like they're disconnected, but when you make these decisions, it reverberates through the whole thing. Another thing I'll share, we didn't have catering this Spice for the dinners. Everyone had to bring a dish. A very specific assignment was given to each person. Here's the theory. If you don't want to bring a carton of strawberries, you're probably not going to share and follow through with the connection that you promised you'd make with the guy sitting or gal sitting next to you, right? I know that sounds weird, but when somebody has skin in the game where they got to take time and go get the bottle of wine to then bring to the thing, it creates a different level of ownership where they feel like this is their community too. Is it a pain in the ass to assign these things to people? Yeah, it sucked. But at the same time, it worked really, really well. So these are things that you get to decide as you're designing. And I hope that you guys are getting from this. Community building can just be spontaneous and it doesn't have to be structured. But more often than not, really great communities, especially as they scale and they grow, there's a lot of little design decisions that people just don't even think about. And that's what reinforces that it's a real community.
So a few things. One, Kirk, I'm gonna borrow that some of that stuff from you. So some of the stuff we're already doing and I had never connected the dots in those ways. Two, I definitely noticed the cap in your programming and the Captain America over your shoulder there. So I kind of throw that out there. But one of the things I want to highlight for everyone watching is because Kirk said a lot of amazing things. I don't want to gloss over the concept of scaling and then making the decision, basically what amounts to making the decision between micromanagement and macro management of like a city-based, or really anything but a city-based thing, right? And so this is one thing that we've been talking a lot about to the founders in our startup program, right? But obviously it's applied to community building, across geographies. And so this concept, more so actually got from Google's leadership program, is this concept of polarity, right? And so in many cases, leaders, whether you're a founder or anything else, you may think that the decision is either I do micromanagement or I do macro management, or said even in startup mode or startup land, founder mode or CEO mode, right? The founder mode would be everything's got to be the same, boom, 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 boom. CEO mode, like I'm going to hire great captains and let them do their thing and trust, right? But what data and research shows is that it's actually instead of it being an either or situation, it's a both and, right? So so you shift, and sometimes you're in founder mode, quote unquote, or micromanagement mode, and sometimes you're in macro management mode. And again, this is about building community on kind of local levels. The question is, at what point do you shift between one or the other as you're leading these multiple types of communities? And so like essentially, what are the early warning signs, right? And so in many cases, it's going to be around quality. So Kurt, talked about we want the same experience across all the different communities, whether you're in New York or Las Vegas or whatever. So if you're building community, the question I think you should be asking yourself is if the main thing is quality, what are the KPIs around quality? How are you tracking it? Do you have a dashboard? And when do you jump in? Because obviously you want to, if your main thing is quality, you want to jump in before it's an issue, right? When it's in the yellow stage versus the red stage. If it's red, now you got to go, more than likely, you're going to go full on founder mode, which may do some things to your city captains or wherever, president, whatever you want to call them, right? May cause morale issues and things of that nature, right? And so the question, one of the bigger things is, what KPIs are you tracking? What is your philosophy on when to jump in? When you're mode, when you're in macro management mode, and stuff like how people view your community and ultimately the outcomes you're going to get.
So if somebody is a fan of behavioral economics and behavioral science, which is basically taking psychology and economics and bringing it together. So Amos Tversky and Danny Kahneman wrote a bunch of books on this, Thinking Fast and Slow. Really, they created all the cognitive biases that we know today. FOMO, they came up with that. Cognitive biases, like, when you go buy a pink Jeep, all of a sudden you're seeing pink Jeeps all over Sedona. No, that's just because that's the color they chose for all their tours. But no, once you get really fixated and focused on something, what you tend to focus on, the attention grows to it, right? This is a metaphorical and metaphysical thing that we know to be true as well. So you can be, again, these things do not exist in black and white. As I try to explain, it's all on a spectrum. Control versus loose, hold on loosely, right? So I think there's another way to look at this, and I bring up the behavioral economics. So Danny Kahneman and Amos Tversky had a protege. His name is Richard Thaler. And Richard Thaler is the one that really kind of brought into the consciousness behavioral economics more aggressively recently. He wrote a book called Nudge. And in Nudge, it's like, do we control somebody's decisions and manipulate them? Or do we set the environment in a way where they have two decisions and they're nudged towards the healthier or better option, or the one that they've already tried to opt into, right? And so in that book, he talks about, where do you put the sandwiches in the lunchroom for the kids versus the other unhealthy things? Where are those? Another example is when it comes to 401ks, do you have this set as a default or not, right? So there's little things you can do that don't feel so oppressive, don't feel so controlling. And I know this starts to get pretty nerdy, right? This is the reason why we're having this. And by the way, founders that are listening, we have been talking about go-to community strategy long before A16Z or anybody else was bringing up Brex and all those groups, because this is a way to launch whatever you're building, right? And it's also great to verify and validate the product, the experience, the service that you're launching, is to have at least a water cooler conversation where you're the leader. So for those of you that are thinking, how do I scale? Start small. Start with 10, start with 30, start with 50, and create the consistency, and then start bringing in other leaders, to see what it can become in. But always be in service and always have your ear to the ground to listen to what's the experience, how do we refine it. Your best ideas that then become statutes often come from the bottom, come from the folks that are coming and having the experience. I like to run things very laissez-faire, which is a very French way to say, very easy way to say, not easy way, a fancy way to say, let people do what they want. And so in general, we try to set principles and then have the right environment plus the right leadership. But yes, when it comes to back end, like how are we handling napkins and dinnerware and all that, and all the wine glasses at every event, right? It does get better when you have processes in place for that. I tend to be a very, do things loose kind of an approach. That's because I'm more visionary versus integrator. But I think if you start building communities at scale, you need to have somebody that's thinking, hey, at all times, how do we handle the operations? As an example, inside of the 3 city captains, we would make sure there was at least one super connector, like critical. Like, I'm not going to launch a community until I have a super connector. Like, this is literally the reason why I wanted to connect with Joey originally, is because I recognize that Joey has done a very good job in Atlanta. I'm not looking to replace Joey. I'm looking to back and support Joey with all the stuff that we have, because he's the man and his team has done a really good job there. We're not trying to be them, but we have some things that are very difficult to build. And so when it came to those 3 city captains, you'd have the super connector, the organizer, and then you'd have kind of the relationship person that would do follow-up and follow-through. But if I have to, really make sure it's going to be successful, I'll add as many super connectors as I can, because they're the ones that can invite people and get people to show up every single time. Filling rooms is not easy. And as someone that has never failed to fill a single room that we've done in like 7 years, and we're talking all sorts of scale, our Fusion 42 and Venture House events have 250 to 450 people at them at a house. That means we're parking cars down the street, 250 cars. Gabriel came, he saw we had a black car service for part of it, moving them to a whole freaking parking lot that we set up, right? We had to make sure we were good to all the neighbors. What's the SOP for the neighbors? How do we make sure people don't park in front of them? We're giving them gift certificates. We're trimming their hedges. We're turning the sound off at 10. We're bringing food over. Like, these are all these things that you get to think about when you want to build something that's repeatable. And in my opinion, if you're not doing things consistently and they're not having a consistent experience, it's not truly community. You got a bunch of people that aren't having a shared experience. It's not a community. It's called a crowd. It's called a group.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I mean, even tying back into what you were saying, like with the question for authenticity, like I'm just been mulling it over as I've been, listening to you guys, and even as just the initial communities that I created, and even stemming now to where we're building with Founding Titans. like the authenticity aspect of it really stems into, how do you create this community versus creating a crowd, just like Kurt was saying, right? Like I'm looking at even I'm sorry, I'm just running through everything too, because there's been so much great content here, man. Like it's thank you both for being on. But even I was running through like Bloom's taxonomy in the back of my mind, and how some of those kind of thought processes actually play into community building and everything there. And for those of you guys that don't know, it's basically like the breaking down, like understanding, analyzing, reasoning, synthesizing, concluding for just thought processes in general. And a lot of AI frameworks actually use this too. But just thinking about a lot of like the cognitive frameworks combined with, some of the competency-based ones, or even just some of the social ones too, as Kurt was kind of going through all the different concepts that he was talking about. But even like the first community that I started was by accident, right? We had basically 10,000 people that followed a Twitter page. And then magically we just kept having people come back over and over and over again, to the point where even though the community organization was shut down, basically within the first 6 months, even though it was successful, we just got a cease and desist. That's a story for another day. But
you rabble rouser, you troublemaker.
Yeah, story for another day for that one. But yes, I did. Yeah, that happened. I'll tell you guys on the side if you guys want to hear that story. But like even then, I would still consistently throw events and things like that after, and it was to the point where my college roommates were like really confused. With the house party, we would invite like 4 or 5 people, hundreds of people would show up, and they'd be like, "Why does this keep happening? Like, what is going on?" Like nobody could understand or fathom it. And I didn't click for me until like the second event, where okay, I've built an audience of people that are captivated by the safety, the trust, the authenticity of the things that we're doing. And it's not just people gathering to, drink or have fun or do whatever it is. It's the fact that we truly built a lot of these elements from the ground up. And then when you look at from a company standpoint, how do you build out some of those aspects as well, right? So when you look at like what we're building with Founding Titans, right? We are a software platform, but we're also building a community at the end of the day on the back end for it. How do all of those different connections actually, come into place, right? And how do you make sure that there is authenticity? Because a lot of organizations too, they have their own communities. If you look at Google, if you look at AWS, if you look at all of these other major entities, there's some form of community both internally and externally, right? And so how do they make sure that they maintain that community? Because at the end of the day, when you have an enterprise, you have a community, you want sales, right? Like you want to make sure that you have that and you're keeping your audience engaged, whatever your end goal is. But if you don't do it in the right way, then it just seems like you're selling them. You don't actually care about the outcomes that you're trying to distribute or maintain or offer. If you actually care about, okay, I'm creating something for Black entrepreneurs, or I'm creating something for people in AI or whatever it is, if you actually have that based into the core emphasis of your business or what you're offering, just like how Kurt and Joey both do. Like Kurt does it with on a global scale, but also does it on the city scale with like entrepreneurs and investors. Joey does it for a broad range of things, to even with what you do with what is it called? All founders need therapy, and then branching that off into all community builders need therapy. So I've been on both of those sessions. I've shared in both of those sessions, and like just the raw like passion that comes from a lot of people within the organizations. And it's not easy for you to create a space for them to feel comfortable with sharing either, right? And so it's like, okay, how do I present the company? How do I present this organization in an authentic manner? How do I post about it in an authentic manner, and all of these different things? And then how does that stem down into the final aspect of, okay, now that I've built all of these different aspects, then it comes down to maintaining it, right? Because I've built out audiences, and just because you build an audience doesn't mean that they'll come. Just because you have the audience doesn't mean you'll keep them, because there's always something new, shiny in the room that somebody else will gravitate towards. So the ability to not only get them in, but maintain them is, something that all of the concepts that you guys have been kind of explaining or going at, or, talking through, they all build to those points, right? And I think that for every community builder or entrepreneur that's thinking of adding some element of go to community or community aspects, or even just people that are a part of communities and want to figure out, how do I get more involved? How do I stay engaged? How do I do all of these things? It all stems down to these core points that you guys have talked about. I know we're almost at time here too. We've only got about 5 minutes left, but I want to ask one quick question that could stem into an entirely different session, and I'll ask one. But I really want to tie in, because I put it in the event description, and I feel bad that we weren't able to talk about it.
It's my fault. I'd be asking follow-up
No, you're good. This has been amazing. Like, no, trust me. I told you guys at the beginning, for anybody that's watching or has previously watched sessions, I would rather talk about one topic for an hour and give really tailored, informative content than go through and just like boom, 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 hit questions, right? That's not what I want to do. I want the authenticity to be there. But also want to ask this as a quick wrap up to the wrap up, I guess. When looking at AI, right? How does AI and emerging tech actually, adapt into communities right now, and especially communities at scale and growing?
I'll just say this, since we have a whole AI mafia that's dedicated to tracking what's happening with AI, like we have over 7 on that team. I'm going to build out the same thing for blockchain and cryptocurrency. There's going to be a flight towards blockchain because of all the inauthenticity that's going to come from AI. So founders using cold email outreach when they suck at marketing and are not thinking about what that individual VC probably needs to read or receive to be excited, it's only going to amplify. So just because you're good at using AI and AI is faster doesn't make you a marketer. Just because you're good at AI doesn't mean that you understand how to create the hook or when or how is the right way to approach. So I think people that are really skilled at some of these interpersonal skills, people skills, how to win friends and funders, right? They're going to kick ass with AI. But those that are just going to spray and pray, it's going to get worse. And I'm just telling you now, we went from there was no social media to the early days of social media. It was so much easier to get audience, right? You guys remember those days. And then it's gotten to the point where there's so much noise, it's about to amplify more than you can imagine. And just for everybody that's listening, AI is the biggest invention in the history of our lifetimes, if not bigger than that. It is moving at a pace that I am not sure that most people are aware of. I mean, I'm serious. Like, you think you understand it, but unless you're really paying very close attention, we have about a 12-month lead on the rest of the market. Now, I'm lucky I'm in the venture world, so I'm seeing all the tech before everybody else does, right? But I just think that you have an opportunity as a community builder. I called one of my buddies and said, we need to start doing Friday sessions on AI. He's got the largest online group of AI people, 3.5 million. So we're going to start that on Fridays, where we start doing Twitter spaces and stuff. Because I recognize for everyone that's working with Goodie or everyone that's working with Fusion or founding Titans, I think we have a responsibility and an opportunity to get market share in helping people to mitigate how difficult it is to keep up with the all-out blitzkrieg that is AI. But just remember, AI doesn't make you awesome at what you do. It just amplifies what you do. So I'd like to bring up the metaverse too. If you sucked at marketing in the real world, you'd suck at marketing in the metaverse too. AI doesn't make you a great marketer, at least not yet. And I think one last thing I'll just say is marketing, AI doesn't understand abstract connection. AI doesn't know how fundraising works, guys. It just doesn't. It does not understand the pattern and the rigging of the game behind fundraising. So, Phil, real quick, you said something about how do you handle folks that are part of the community but rarely participate. You're always going to have a large portion of people that are lurkers versus individuals that are willing to be very active. And what you're looking for is your early adopter people that are like raving fans, and you want to put energy into them and let them go out and enlist and enroll other people to come back to the community. There's things you can do to stimulate these other groups. Part of it is I think being a successful community builder is you just need to listen a lot. Listen, ask, listen, and then implement the stuff that you know is going to create additional traction and additional connectivity between individuals.
Perfect with the quick segue for that one. And I want to toss it over to Joey too, because I know you guys have been doing a lot more with AI within Goodie Nation, and even some of the panels and sessions that I've attended myself. Like, I mean, there's amazing content there. So if you want to take a tackle or stab at this one too.
Yeah, just super quick. So as Kirk says, AI has created a lot of noise. What we're going to start to see moving forward is a few things, right? This actually came up last Thursday during our storyteller roundtable, right? Identity focused roundtable, where you had folks at these big companies and that run large communities are telling how brands like the NFL are moving from starting with paid to go to organic. They're starting to go with organic to go to paid, right? So huge shift. We already see at the early stage, But now at the enterprise level, how they're shifting their dollars, because dollars are getting tight, right? Budgets are getting tight. And so I know we only have a few minutes left. So what I'll just quickly say is that's the trend, right? So then the question is, again, using AI tools, what are you going to do about it to help create more organic relationships and build better communities? I do think the community builders that embrace AI tools and very specifically understand why they are good at the actual community building. A lot of people do this stuff naturally. They are naturally good connectors of humans. They don't understand how they're doing it. If you can understand how you're actually making the connections in your head, what fields and stuff like that you're looking at, what traits of humans, like how you're combining all that stuff together. If you can figure that out and then build that into an AI model or something like that, I think you'll be good. Those that can't figure it out, I don't think you're gonna. I'm not saying you're not gonna be successful. It's just gonna be a lot harder for you moving forward.
No, 100%. And like, even as we're building out these tools with machine learning and artificial intelligence for community builders, for entrepreneurs, with the platform that we're working on with Founding Titans, and like, how do we handle their relationship management piece on top of making sure that they're being introduced to the right people, right? Making sure that you're able to spark these conversations and provide the right analytics. Like, it's a difficult balance, and it's something that we're even working out with the algorithms that we're creating, because even tying back to the authenticity, conversation we were having earlier, there's a lot of bloat right now. There's a lot of BS, even as you're looking at a lot of algorithms with trying to, generate content and making sure that you're drawing in new audiences, but also keeping your current audiences engaged. Right now, there's not enough there. And there's, even with the LinkedIn algorithm, right? They're basically looking at volume and the amount of time it takes to read certain things versus, okay, is this authentic or not, or whatever it is. Like, even they have their own AI prompt builder or AI message builder within the applications now, right? 90% of data has been created over the last 2 years with for our data within our lifetime, which means majority of that data is synthetic data that we're utilizing or that we're seeing in one way, shape, or another. And so it's really thinking about, okay, how do you balance that too for community builders? Like, how do I balance, writing posts with AI versus, okay, having an in-house person creating some of this content or information too. I know we're lower on time too. I want to make sure I respect both of these guys' time because I don't want to take up their entire day, but also I appreciate both of them for definitely jumping on today. And so, to wrap everything up really quick, we always have a question that we ask with our final reflections, and we kind of tailor it towards the session. So I'll hit you guys with this. What's one thing you wish every business leader knew about either community or entrepreneurship, but they often don't? And only whichever one you guys want to take that last question.
Community is a superpower. It is absolutely just something that every time I go into a project, I'm thinking, how do we rig this? And community is such a moat because it is so difficult to do. It's like pushing a school bus up a hill. It feels like that a lot of times too, until you get to a critical mass where it really takes off and it becomes its own thing. It's not for everyone, but it is for the ones that know that it's what they need to do. And as Joey has said, it's a spontaneous thing for those of us. Some of us can't help but do it, but there's a huge reward in it. Now, look, if it's not quite for you to be the one to go build it, go build with somebody else. Go build in their shade next to them, find somebody that really resonates where you can get what you're hoping to get out of it, which there's nothing wrong with wanting some short term, but man, the real ROR, which I need to write a book on, return on relationship, is really in what can come of this. So many of our family office relationships pre me building a family office community have come from, and I didn't say this earlier, we have different communities. We've got Fusion for founders. We've got Angel X for angel investors. We've got Mainsail for family offices. But so much of what is coming my way where multiple groups are approaching is because they've seen the heavy lifting and the effort we've done into ecosystem building and serving founders. And before that, obviously entrepreneurs and those kinds of things. So there's a lot of abstract value because, guys, every bit of money I've ever made, whether it's 7 figures, 8 figures, whatever, has always come from key relationships. And so what's cool about Joey bringing up the party all the time is I like to use the Vegas effect. Everybody wants to be around the host of the party. The host of the party gets to bring everybody together. Another Vegas concept is everybody wants to be behind the red velvet rope. And so creating those experiences where you have founders together, sometimes with other funders, sometimes it's angel investors, or sometimes that it's not quite appropriate if it's a room filled full of funders to have a bunch of founders come. It has to be founders that know how to think very long-term about relationships, so they keep it in their pants and don't constantly pitch, because that will turn off that room if that room was specifically designed just for funders to be with other funders, right? One is not right or wrong. They're just different design decisions. And so, I would say if you're a founder and you're building something and you have and are willing to put the energy in, it has tremendous rewards and upside, because very few other people will do it. It's a lot of work, though. Don't forget that. It's a ton of work. Don't do it alone.
100%. And Joey, on that regard, if you have your final reflection points on, what every business leader or community, builders should know, but they often don't.
Yeah. I just firmly believe that we have everything that we need to create the change that we seek. We're just not efficient in how we go about doing it. So as a community builder, think about efficiency, right? The only other thing I would say is think about how you can make the right connection at the right time. The right time is the critical piece. So that's my thing.
Perfect. Thank you, man. And thank you both. So to quickly wrap everything up, I'll pass it to you, Joey, if you want to just give, some quick context for Goodie Nation in like 15, 30 seconds, and just anything you want to shout out for you guys. And then I'll pass it to Kurt. He'll do the same thing for Fusion. Also, doesn't have to be Goodie Nation, any other projects or anything. Just, want to make sure you guys get the time to be able to, get some more eyes on the stuff you guys are building for your communities.
Oh yeah. So listen, I alluded to this earlier. We launched a marketing agency accelerator yesterday in Atlanta. We're looking for amazing folks to connect these entrepreneurs to before we expand this program out nationally next year. So if you work for a brand or work for a larger agency or know some folks that do, please connect with me. And then also we are looking for interesting D2C companies or companies that sell their physical products through e-commerce and stuff like that. We have some interesting opportunities to support them as well. So you can find me on LinkedIn under Joey Womack. You can also go to goodienation.org to get in contact.
Yeah, I tossed the QR codes on here. This is recorded as well. So after this session ends, if you guys miss any QR codes or anything else or the links, they'll be, I'll add them into the bios, as well as you've got the QR codes here now. New thing we're trying out. Seems to be working well. You've already have somebody that scanned one. So things are working well there. But also, I want to bring it over to Kurt for Fusion. So which link do you want me to put? You want me to put the GSA link, or do you want me to put the Fusion link?
Yeah, go for it. So guys, we have weekly sessions. You guys can come to Tuesday sessions to learn about fundraising fluency, to learn about go-to community, to learn about GTM, go-to market. We also have AI sessions. These are every week. We do 200 of them a year. We do Pitch Kung Fu every single Thursday. So you're going to see real founders pitching real products and opportunities in front of real investors and marketers. We do that every week. And then the calendar, we've got a big fundraising season ahead of us. Fundraising season 2 in the year is September to Thanksgiving. And so in September, we have a global super accelerator that we have 250 founders that'll be joining. It's equity free, very, very low cost. But don't come if you're not serious. If you want to get a kick in the ass and really get launched, it's a great place. We'll be working closely with Founding Titans, potentially Goodie Nation on that. In October, we're bringing 50 founders and 25 investors to all of our events out at GITEX in Dubai. If you've ever wanted to do business in the Middle East and you wanted to get connected with contracts and capital and all that, we are running a contest with Founding Titans where you can come to Pitch Kung Fu and show us what you got. You will upload a 2-minute pitch into the Danger Room in Telegram first, and then we choose from the best. Founding Titans is also going to be pitching, so you get a chance to see them. And that's in October. And then last but not least, we have the Raise Fundraising Summit, where we bring the best fundraisers together from all over the world. I did 50 interviews with the best fundraisers. The average panelist has raised over 100 million. Guys, it doesn't matter if you're raising. You need to be learning this stuff. Even if you've got a small business, you want to be around people that inspire you, right? And so we have that. That's 3 days in November. And then we have F1. I've run 8 events for F1, and we're going to be doing some family office stuff and some founder stuff. Those that were there last year loved it. We had 3,500 guests at the first event, and we had 220 on a private balcony overlooking the strip and the race. It was excellent. So come hang out with us, fusion-42.com. Click the yellow button to get into our Telegram. And we look forward to jamming with all of you guys, and anything we can do to serve you guys or support you, let us know.
Awesome. No, thank you so much. And looking forward to collaborating with both Fusion and Goodie Nation more on everything. But also want to give you guys some context for Founding Titans here as well. So if you guys want to catch any more sessions or panels just like this, make sure you go over to our Luma calendar. We also have it on the news section of our website, foundingtitans.com. For any upcoming sessions, we have things both in person as well as virtual panels, fireside chats, in-person events for both community builders and founders and investors, all of the amazing things that we're providing there. So there's the QR code for that. We actually had over 140 people that signed up just organically for our Luma without us having to put it in our newsletters or anything else. So we're starting to get a lot more traction there. And that's without us actually pushing it to any of the communities that we have signed up with the LOIs. We've got current user bases at about 14,000 plus. We're continuing to grow from there with that. And bringing that up again as well. There we go. So our platform, once again, is Founding Titans. So foundingtitans.com is our website. We're able to help community builders and entrepreneurs to be able to 10x their network size, as well as 10xing the engagement that they're receiving, and then helping them out with their relationship management, community management, events, sponsorships. All of those amazing things are on the horizon. We're going to be launching the platform on November 4th. Stay tuned for a lot of important updates and information. There might be a closed alpha that we're going to be announcing next month as well. So if you get invited to that, more power to you. If you want to hear more about that, reach out. And then we also are approaching fundraising season. So we're also, looking at stuff on that end. So if you have any founder or if you have any investors, definitely let us know, but not just for us, for other founders as well, because I also do personally 50 intros a week for community builders, founders, entrepreneurs in general, users of our platform, just out of my own personal network, to make sure that everybody's getting the connections that they need. So even if it's outside of our spaces for like future of work and B2B SaaS, I connected a healthcare founder last week with an investor. We're always trying to make sure that at the end of the day, people are, getting the right things that they need and the resources. So that's it from us. I'm going to close it out here, but thank you all so much for joining us today.